The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Well, everybody, welcome to the SpotTrack.com podcast. I'm Kevin Sylvester, along with Paul Peck. We're from BuffaloSportsPage.com and the founder of SpotTrack.com, Mike Giannetti. We're through 3 weeks of the NFL season. We've got injury stuff to talk about, quarterbacks, holdouts, running backs, defensive linemen that are worth the money, all these things, Paul, that go into it.
Yeah, it's the money is always a factor, as Mike has taught us through the life of this podcast, that even in the midst of the season, decisions are made based on salaries and financials and looking ahead to the cap. So all these transactions and all these results, Mike, they always have a money factor.
Yeah, they do. And what's funny now is, as we're getting towards a quarter way through the season, is you're also sort of flip the switch on that too and find out who didn't pay enough in what areas and things like that, right? Who gave up too much in free agency? Obviously, who were free agent busts, right? We're starting to see some of that across the league. But yeah, the money's every Monday morning. I'll sit down and there's always 5 or 6 stories, financially speaking, that come to mind based on injuries or amazing plays, and obviously, here in Buffalo, the value of beating a team like the Vikings that badly with a team that's just constructed really poorly financially. So.
Yeah. Well, Kirk Cousins right now, people in Minnesota, as we record this, say he better have a good one Thursday night or he's not worth a lick.
Talk about a game to follow up with that, huh?
Ooh, right.
You get blown out at home by Buffalo, and then you get the Rams.
The Rams look unstoppable.
They're banged up. They're banged up.
The two injuries at corner could really hurt them a lot, or it just means they're going to have to score 40 every game to win.
Yeah, they can do it though. But that's
who do you pick on the Rams fantasy wise? I'm asking for a friend.
Just Gurley
for 30. Yeah, right.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. He's the one and done on that team.
Yeah.
Who do you pick on the Bills?
That's a fantastic question. Alan.
Did you happen to see my tweet this weekend after the game?
If I said yes, that means I looked at Twitter, but I'm going to say no.
All right,
I'm sorry. I didn't see your
you
tweet.
Curmudgeon.
Sorry.
Here's the tweet.
I was golfing.
Average salaries. Kirk Cousins is $28 million. The Week 3 Bills starting 11 was $27.2 million.
That's awesome.
The entire 11 offensive players for the Bills in Week 3 were $1 million less than Kirk Cousins alone.
He completed 40 passes in the game.
Yeah.
And lost big in that game.
The only thing you asked Kirk Cousins after the game is how's the weather, because he was staring at the sky for about half the game.
And the thought occurred to me that here's the problem with what they paid Kirk Cousins is you're getting a good quarterback for that money. But in a game like that, he couldn't elevate the team around him. And frankly, he was the reason for some of the mistakes that they made. And I always thought that was the knock on Kirk Cousins was he never really elevated the teams around him. The Redskins were always sort of around 500. There was one game last year they needed to win the last game to make the playoffs. He didn't play well. They didn't win it. That was my doubt about Kirk Cousins. And I get the marketplace dictated how much money he got, but I don't know that I would put him in that class of Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, the guys who could say, all right, everything around me stinks. I'm going to make us win today because I'm of who I am. I don't know that Cousins can do that.
Here's the thing with the money. I'm never going to gawk too much at Kirk Cousins' money right now because they were able to sign everybody else around him. You know what I mean? It was just a good time to have a quarterback that needed to be paid because he was available and that was the going price. They still signed, Delvin Cook's dirt cheap. Latavius Murray's a suitable backup at a good number. They were able to sign Diggs. They had Thielen under contract. They had Rudolph under contract. Outside of maybe a lack of spending at the offensive line, which was pretty evident.
Yes, I was going to say.
The Bills. Everything else is sort of. They signed 3 defensive players with extensions. They really did everything they needed to do. I just don't think they're not clicking yet. Right? They don't look like they did last year. Around postseason time, obviously, and they haven't for 3 weeks. So. It's a big game Thursday for a team that's that's the highest paid starting lineup in football right there.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Like I said, they signed everybody, so it's not just Cousins financially. It's everybody, and it starts and ends with Cousins because if he's not getting the ball out of his hands, it's going nowhere, right?
Well, that was clearly a. It's called flat in football, right? Everybody has a flat game.
That's right.
They had a flat game, but I think it became flat because of a personal foul. And then 2 fumbles.
Yeah, the turnovers changed that whole game.
It just looked like Buffalo had an axe to grind. Didn't it look like varsity versus JV? Almost every single play. I mean, the trenches were just getting blown up.
Well, they had momentum, and they converted on the big plays, and then the game's over. Like, those guys know, like, they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
And, the Bills just took away the deep ball and just, the front seven just pounced on everything. I mean, it was great. Matter of fact, this guy like Jerry Hughes, like, you want to talk about pride. I mean, here's a guy who's, prides himself on being a well-paid edge rusher. And despite what his quarterback pressures were going into the game, I didn't think he played that great. I didn't think he was much of a factor in their first two games, and scores certainly indicate that, but boy, was he a factor.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There,
everybody sort of played with an edge.
Yeah. Well, and I know, Mike, that the numbers say one thing, and your illustration is incredible. That the numbers back that up, but ultimately, I think all NFL teams are so close together. The best one and the worst one are 3 fingernail lengths apart, and then you add turnovers into the course of a game. That's how the worst team can beat the best team.
And
changes everything. The turnovers change the momentum of that game. Short fields allowed Josh Allen to not have to drive 75 yards for touchdowns. It allowed him to do some things with his legs on short fields. Teams get down on themselves after turnovers are always the ultimate game changer, decider that makes one team, no matter how good you think they are, how bad you think they are, how much they're getting paid, how much they're not getting paid. Turnovers change everything in the NFL, and not every team has the ability to always generate them on a consistent basis, and that's what makes it week to week so much fun.
That's why a spread like that, a 17-point spread, that's I struggle with that at the professional level because there is that much parity on a week-to-week basis. One penalty can change the entire landscape of a game. So I mean, the Bills are what? Plus 10 again, going to Green Bay this weekend. So another big spread. I struggle with that.
And if they don't take the ball away, I could see that easily being a 21-point margin.
But I guess the point is you could see it the other way too, right?
Sure.
I mean, we could see it happen again. Josh Allen, running the ball 55, 60 yards with his feet, right? I mean, it's very doable. You've got a non-mobile Aaron Rodgers in a banged-up defense in Green Bay. 10 points seems big.
And you got Clay Matthews, who doesn't even want to go near a quarterback.
Yeah, he's not going to touch anybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, how horrible was that, by the way?
Well, it's been
that
multiple
is,
times.
I know, but I mean, come on, he's made a tackle. That's
my only beef with that is everybody loves the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks are the stars of the game. I think every fan ultimately would say, I don't want my quarterback getting hurt. Can you do whatever you can do to help my quarterback not get hurt? But then we're gonna freak out over it, exactly what the NFL is doing. They're basically saying these guys are too valuable to the product, to the team, for us to even have an ounce of there being a chance that something happens. Look what happened. Look what's going on in San Francisco. They're dead now.
Yeah, let's talk
about Garoppolo gets all that money. They're dead. So I get what the NFL is doing. It's freaking people out, but.
Listen, all you got to do is wrap a guy up now. You got to hug him, he's set.
Well,
but let's talk about Garoppolo because we're talking about the money in this. And is this true? He's going to lose money because he's injured.
Yeah, the deal included per game active bonuses, so he's going to lose about $650,000
in total. Not per game.
No, not per game.
All right, I read that wrong because I looked at it like $650,000.
No, he had $800,000 in total bonuses on a per week basis, so he'll lose about three quarters of that.
Why the hell would his agent negotiate that?
Well, because he's still making $41.3 million this year.
I understand what he's still making.
I think he's going to be okay.
He's losing less than 1% of his salary.
He played 2.5 games this year, and he's making $41 million.
But hold on. I mean, he's injured. He got injured on the job. I think he needs to call an attorney here.
Workman's compensation?
Yes.
Well, to speak to that, there are some injury guarantees. So if this is a recurring injury and this ACL doesn't exactly heal up, he's actually guaranteed through 2020 with like another $39 million of just base salaries.
Wow.
So if this is more long term, he is secured from an injury guarantee standpoint. But these per game bonuses are becoming more and more prevalent, especially with the quarterback because of the injuries, because of the safety issues. Aaron Rodgers had him for a long time until this recent contract. That was like his big win that he didn't have those included. But a lot of these guys who are hitting the IR right now have those and are forfeiting money. And one who's not hitting the IR but is hitting the bench.
Yeah, Sam Bradford
has a big one.
Same deal with him, right?
Way more blown up though. This is when I took to Twitter and I really got on it because this is a big deal. Sam Bradford's probably not just going to the bench. He's probably going to the inactive list and possibly to the free agent market because Sam Bradford has $50,000 per week for a total of $5 million in roster bonuses.
What?
$5 million over the course of 16 weeks. So if they cut him right now and they don't let him dress for week 4, or if they just deactivate him for week 4 through the rest of the year, they'll save $4 million cash, and that's $4 million he won't make. Yeah, I think it's going to be. It looks like they might carry him probably as a third string. They probably deactivate him for week 4, but I bet by week 5 he's not on the roster anymore.
So
he's probably in San Francisco.
That deal was done with the Cardinals' knowledge that they were going to draft a quarterback, and there was a good chance that quarterback was going to play.
Not to mention Bradford's injuries. I mean,
right.
That's why you do it, because he's been injured, more than he's been on the field over the course of his career. But really, it's rare to see it with this impactful. I mean, a $5 million per game active bonus is huge. That's one of the biggest I've ever seen. So, like I said, it's a substantial amount of cash to save. And I put together just a little math quickly. That $4 million they'll save will almost cover Rosen for the remainder of his contract for the next 3 years. So, I mean, you're talking about a significant chunk of cash savings for the Cardinals if they're going to stick with Rosen. I mean, he looked shaky. Let's be fair.
Right.
He was put into a terrible position, but he looked shaky. So we'll see. We'll see how that sort of shakes out. Either way, Mike.
It's a barn burner of a game, by the way. 16-14 Bears. Right.
By the way, Mike Lennon's on that roster too. So there's really no reason for Sam Bradford to dress from here out because Mike Lennon's an adequate backup quarterback.
Sure,
you know what I mean? And he's making $4 million himself.
He was hoping he was getting in the game because he,
against
pay
the
back
Bears?
for the Bears.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, so now we know why they signed all that. On the surface in the offseason, you're like, geez, why would you sign Bradford and another veteran and you think you're going to draft a guy? They knew they knew what was going to happen. They knew what they were going to do and they knew what was likely to happen. So it makes perfect sense.
Well, let me go to Cleveland on this. Let's stay on quarterbacks here.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor gets injured, and why can't I think of his name? Baker goes in, wins the game.
Which only meant that he played 3 less snaps than he would have played anyway after being benched at halftime of that game.
That's right.
Well, so anyway, Baker Mayfield goes in. They also have Stanton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Stanton.
if they decide to move on from Tyrod Taylor,
yeah, they've got an adequate backup. Yeah.
What are the cap ramifications there? Or if they trade him.
So it's going to be about $13 million saved because he's on a $15 million salary that will get chopped up, per week from here out. I do think he's a major trade candidate if he's healthy. Healthy. I think San Fran's probably going to be asking about that. Maybe a few other teams as well, who either have some injury issues like Tennessee or maybe don't like what their current situation like Jacksonville. I've heard Jacksonville is sniffing because Bortles is quickly falling out of favor again.
They were heavy great a couple weeks ago.
I thought he was great.
Yeah. They were heavy, from what I was told by a reliable source. They were heavy on Cousins.
That's right.
It was Jacksonville or Minnesota.
Yeah,
is what I was told. It came for Kirk Cousins. Told it came down between those two, which is surprising. Jacksonville, right?
Well, they're sniffing now, so they're not happy still with Blake Bortles, at least for the remainder of 2018, because that's the team that I think that. It's probably one of the favorites.
Wow,
don't you
he's
think?
like Jekyll Hyde, right? He looks great.
Isn't it crazy?
He played great 2 weeks ago.
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the other pieces of news that comes out this past week was the reports that the Steelers are willing to listen to trade offers for LeVeon Bell. The question to you, Mike, is anybody actually calling to ask? There was reports that the Jets may have inquired. What's the trade market for LeVeon, and how is that going to work?
It's really interesting because I just don't see a trade changing the mentality, right? I don't see Le'Veon Bell walking into a new locker room and putting on a new jersey and all of a sudden he wants to, go out there and raise some hell when he's not paid and he's not going to be paid. This is just, let's just make this clear. A trade to a new team does not change his financial outlook for 2018. He still has the franchise tag. That gets chopped up another $855,000 every week, right? That's what he forfeits per week by missing. I still don't think he's going to give any kind of indication that he's coming back until the middle of November, which is the November 13th is the deadline to sign the franchise tag before it voids. From a trade standpoint, sure, I see teams considering it. I just think you're getting half a running back for the rest of 2018, no matter where this is, no matter how good the team is.
Getting arrested running back.
You're getting. Yeah, but he wants to stay that way until he's got $30 million guaranteed.
Well, what about the point that you made that any team that trades for him would sort of hint,
sure.
wink, be ready to sign him long term?
that's
Jets,
going to happen.
who are going to need a running back, who have a lot of cap room next year, who might have been in the LeVeon Bell market anyway, why wouldn't, particularly if they stay in the race, why wouldn't they try to make that trade now?
Because he can still get hurt. He can still get hurt for 6 weeks or 7 weeks.
Yeah, and what are you giving up
no
for
guarantees.
him? Right.
Yeah, there's until that contract is signed. I don't care if it's agreed to, if they're talked about, if all the numbers match. It's not signed, so he's not going to go out there and get 300 touches over the second half of this season for anybody, because he knows what he's worth, and he's waited long enough, and he really has. I give him credit for this. It stinks for Pittsburgh. It stinks for football because this is one of the most dynamic players in the game, and shame on Pittsburgh, really, shame on them, because they need this. They need this. They've got veterans at the tails of their career, especially their quarterback. They've got Mike Tomlin probably on the ropes right now because of this, and shame on them, because this is one of those players you just suck it up and you pay, like the Rams have done with Gurley. That's too bad that organizationally they didn't have the structure to put this in place.
What, again, per week he is missing out on how much?
$855,529.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a
so a new team right now, it would cost $12 million for Le'Veon Bell if they were able to sign him to that tag. $12 million for the rest of the year. It's a lot of money. It's a hell of a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think the issue, to Paul's question and point, I think the issue is what would you have to give up to acquire him in a trade?
Knowing that's the money.
Knowing that's the money, but I would think for
a middle round pick, a third?
Probably a third.
I'd give up a third for Le'Veon Bell if I felt like I was going to be able to sign him.
I bet it's a fifth.
Absolutely. A fifth.
I bet it's less.
Oh, my God.
I bet it's
sign
less.
me up right now for a fifth?
For $12 million?
Yeah. For Le'Veon Bell, if he's in my long-term plans, that's nothing. That's nothing. Anything beyond a third-round draft pick in the NFL, I'll give up in a second.
I'm thinking it's not even in long-term plans. If you think you can do something this year, and you can add him an offensive weapon like him, you can add it for $12 million.
Right, but Mike's point is he may not sign with you unless he is in your long-term plan. So that's part of the danger of that.
Actually, my point is, my point is, I don't think any of that matters.
Right. No.
My point is, I don't know how well he's going to play in 2018. I really don't. Yeah. I think he's going to be timid. I think he's going to be reserved, limited, all those things.
He'll hit the holes slower than he already does?
Great. Yeah. I mean,
which is what makes him great.
He's going to go down before all of that. I think it's look, I'm not saying this is negative. I think this is smart. It's smart business on his point, right? He's being told this, and he now believes it, that he's got to lay out this year. He's got to lay out, because next year's the payday, and that's what Pittsburgh has done.
All right, what about the other holder, Earl Thomas?
This is an awesome story.
I don't even know what to say with this.
This is awesome.
I don't even know what to say with Earl Thomas.
He had like
anymore.
The sniffles last week, and he didn't show up for practice, and he basically said, "Unless I'm 100%, I'm not coming."
This is like Brad Favre in every preseason, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna show up this time.
This
guys,
is awesome. This is unprecedented. I mean, I know Brett Favre did that, but it's unprecedented in that there's such animosity there, and Earl Thomas doesn't appear to be hiding from the animosity. He literally said, "If I'm not 100%, I am not coming to practice."
And he's speaking after every game.
Right, until I get a contract.
And he's basically like dictating his own trades on Twitter. And he's got an interception per game. So what do you say? What do you say with this guy? Right? He's the second highest paid free safety in football.
I can't believe Dallas hasn't made this trade already.
I think they're bad. I think they think they're really bad, and that this would just be a waste of time.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's why it hasn't happened yet, because I think they might have a quarterback problem.
Yeah.
And you probably fix that first, right? There's teams calling for sure. I mean, look at if the secondary of the Rams is really beat up, they're going to be calling for sure. Kansas City's already called. I'll guarantee you that. I'll guarantee you.
Yeah, they need some help
Kansas
defensively.
City. Yeah, I think that would be a huge win for them, and maybe even pushes them into the top of the AFC long term if they've got a guy like that in their secondary. So to me, that's the team. Pittsburgh is definitely one of those teams because they're hanging on. Right, I mean they've shown some signs.
They saved
here.
their season with the win.
They did. I mean that I think that division is going to be back and forth. Everybody's sort of on the same plane right now in that division. And you put a guy like Thomas in the back of that. No, look, they don't have much to give up, nor do they structurally have sound contracts in place, which Earl Thomas is going to need. He's an expiring contract, so that's the crux of this. He's going to want to get paid, within a couple of months here. I think he gets traded eventually because look, Seattle had a big win too, but he was a big part of that. So you sort of have to figure out who you are if you're Seattle and if you're actually going to contend. Obviously, Arizona's out of the picture out there, but those other teams out west, they're good.
By the way, the Raiders continue to look foolish.
Terrible.
Yes.
Right? Not
Terrible.
only in how they're playing on the field, but the Khalil Mack trade. Just what a boner of all boners to trade that guy.
Well, and now
right?
you're hearing that John Gruden has like his own front office staff.
He's thrown his own front office under the bus, and every week he's thrown Derek Carr under the bus. Every week he's come out and said something negative about Derek Carr. I don't like Derek Carr either, but if I'm his coach, I'm going to be a little bit more positive with the guy I have to pay for the rest of the year because the backup's EJ Manuel.
Right.
And that's enough said there. So I
thought AJ McCarron's the backup.
McCarron's
third right now. Oh yeah, they cut EJ Manuel.
They cut EJ Manuel.
Yeah.
And
doesn't matter.
And
Doesn't
Connor
matter.
Cook. So I think AJ McCarron's their only other quarterback.
It's unbelievable.
Oh my God.
It's one of those mistakes you don't even have to make.
I mean, just
See,
it was
and I'm
horrible.
a Gruden fan. I like Gruden. I think he's a very smart guy, but I just think the way he's doing it now is completely wrong. And whether it's the way he did it 10 years ago or whether he just thinks that there's another way to do it his way, it's wrong. And again, the reports are that he has like his own guys who do their own scouting and have their own free agent lists, and he yields to them. And the current staff under Reggie McKenzie and the Raiders, like they're shut out of the decisions that are being made. And you're like, what is going on? How are you doing that?
I don't know. It's completely disheveled out there, and it all starts with the Khalil Mack situation, in my opinion. I think there was huge turmoil in that front office about what to do with him. Obviously, there were certain people who wanted to keep him. Obviously, I mean that's been said.
Right.
Well, and then for him to come out and say, it's hard to find good pass rushers.
I know.
I'm like, come on, John, really? You're really going to say that and don't think you're going to get destroyed for that?
He doesn't think he's going to get destroyed. All right, anything else on football, Mike, before we move to some baseball?
Let's switch gears.
All right, let's switch over to baseball because we are coming down to that time here. Champagne's been popped in locker rooms with teams making the postseason, and we're looking at awards, and we just had Max Scherzer reach 300 strikeouts again. I mean,
Crazy.
just awesome stuff.
Let's start with the teams themselves. The playoff scheme is sort of in place. The NL's still got a couple of teams to figure it out with, which is actually going to be really fun to watch for those of you who are baseball fans. But the number one team is locked in, that's for sure, and it's Boston, and it's not only the best team in baseball, it's the highest payroll in baseball, and that's the second straight year, and that hasn't happened in 5-6 years. So back to back, highest payroll, best record, which is something to keep an eye on going forward here because that's sort of rare, right? We've had, I mean, look at those teams haven't won the World Series. So there's something to be said about that.
There are 106 wins. You got the Astros at 100, and you have one other team. The Yankees have a chance to reach 100 with 3 more victories.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's been a pretty productive season for these big teams. I mean, the markets that are heading to the postseason have got to make baseball happy. I mean,
well, New York, Atlanta returning,
Chicago,
right?
Atlanta, Boston, L.A. I mean, big markets, and then you've got your Clevelands and your Houstons and maybe your Colorados or your Milwaukees, and then let's talk about Oakland. Because Oakland's in. Oakland has clinched. With the 28th payroll, with the Billy Bean structure, with everything you want to talk about. Oakland clinched with a DH in Chris Davis, who bombed another 40 home run season, and one of the best relief pitching seasons in the history of baseball from Blake Trinan, a former Washington National castaway. It's silly. It's silly. I mean, I, if you stop people on the street, they can't name 2 pitchers on that team.
No.
And they probably can't name 2 batters in that team. So
it's not Dave Stewart. He's not one of them.
no. We're a long way removed from. But it's the same kind of structure, right? They're still playing this Moneyball structure, and they're doing it. They're doing it fairly well. It just comes in waves, right? Certain years they have to give up, and then certain years they can rebuild a little bit. This was sort of their middle year. I don't think people were ready for the A's yet. I think next year was going to be their best year, where they could add a few free agents to a couple of expiring guys and go from there. But they're here. I mean, they've sort of arrived, similar to the Braves. I think a year earlier than people expected. They've got tons more youth that didn't even come up yet. They expanded to their 40 roster, and they've got some guys here who are just, man, they look great. As a Mets fan, I'm dying inside because this Braves team looks like they're great for maybe 4 or 5 years to come.
And meanwhile, every postseason carrier, TBS, ESPN, or Fox, they are rooting for the Dodgers and Cubs to win their divisions.
Of course.
Right? Because they don't want the Brewers and Rockies in.
No, you can't have that. One of those teams is going to get in, but yeah.
One will be a wild card, yes.
Yeah, so that'll be a one-and-done game there. But yeah, like I said, the big markets are in. We got top 10 payrolls for 5 teams, top 15 for 7 teams, and then, the Athletics at 28. So it's a big gap there.
But no shock to you that the Athletics, they've spent
nothing.
Wisely. They spent wisely.
Wisely.
Right.
Really nothing. I mean, they made some big trade acquisitions. They used that vice this year to get better, and it pushed them to the edge. It got them in. Like I said, they weren't really built to win to start in April and May, and they did some damage. So kudos to the front office there, because they recognized something they had early enough to get it done before they did their usual sellouts.
Payroll-wise, what the hell happened to the Royals?
Man, they let too many people go. They really
weren't
did.
willing to pay the money.
Yeah, and I read an article a couple days ago. They're gonna dump more payroll. Oof. They're gonna rip this thing right down and start over. Whether that means international.
You got your spurt. You got your comet across the sky with the Royals, and after a lot of years of suffering, and unfortunately, when you're a team at that level, it's hard to sustain it. So if you're a Kansas City Royals fan, and I still am because I was as a kid, you had to enjoy that spirit.
What?
Jersey boy rooting
How
for the
hell
Royals?
are you a Royals fan as a kid?
I got sick of all my friends being Yankee fans. I needed somebody to root for.
What, you didn't root for the Mets?
I was going to say, that's
that
the
was my
definition of a
American
Mets
League
fan.
team. That was my American League team.
Oh my gosh!
All right.
And George Brett's always been my favorite Major League player.
You have a George Brett thing in a second. You have an Amos Otis jersey? Is that
no? But I owned a George Brett jersey.
UL Washington, maybe?
No.
All right.
Freddie Patek.
Freddie Patek, sure. I was going to work my way down. Darryl Porter, both
Porter.
the Missouri catcher, because he played for both
Hal
the Royals.
McRae.
So George Brett, have you ever seen his the YouTube video of him discussing?
His hemorrhoids?
Well, it's something similar.
Anger management?
No, he's talking about his elimination experience to some guys in spring training while they're stretching. It's hysterical.
Really?
No, but
yes,
really.
Now I'm going to have to check.
Yeah, no, you need to see it. It's famous, George Brett, and he's, he's just talking about a bathroom experience he had, and it's downright hysterical.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
one of the greatest hitters of all time.
I got one more question for you. Back to the A's real
So you
quick.
get everything here on the Spot Track podcast.
Elimination experience. That's very
Let's
nice.
try to clean that up.
That's very nice. We'll keep the E off this.
The A's will always be famous for the Moneyball and the way that it's changed baseball. Are they still the Moneyball team? Are they still doing it the same way? Is this team built sort of under the Billy Bean theory that made Moneyball famous, or have they shifted their direction in as the game has changed?
No, they're paying nobody. They're trading starting pitchers before those guys need to be paid. They're bringing in the middle sort of 3-4 depth guys to fill roles in the positional positions. They're as Moneyball as they've ever been, and like I said, they weren't even ready to win. I don't think until the middle of June. They just had some guys go out there and hit the ball, and a couple of pitchers really hold things down, and they didn't get injured like a lot of teams do. They sort of stayed healthy, stayed on it, stayed active, stayed in the race, and decided to be buyers at the trade deadline. But yeah, they're still very much a Moneyball team.
Just a little different kind of Moneyball, though.
Maybe. I mean, the game's changed, obviously, so you've got to fill positionally different, right? I mean, starting pitching isn't what it used to be, and they recognize that, and that's what I mean. They made that free agent relief pitching signing of Blake Trinan, and it was everything. It literally changed the landscape of that team, and you're going to see a lot more teams go to that. We've seen it. We've seen it in Cleveland. We've seen it with the Yankees, obviously, and with Houston, just sort of load up on the back end of that relief. But if you don't have guys who can do it on a nightly basis, you're going nowhere.
They have the player value rankings. I say they. It's spottrack.com. Mike's got the player value rankings. The American League MVP is probably, I think it's going to be a good race between Betts.
I think it's him.
And Trout, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Betts is your number one value, and then Trout's third. But what's interesting to me is the guys 4 and 5.
Okay.
Right? In their value in the player rankings. Lindor and Bregman, and we're talking $623,000 for Lindor of Cleveland, and just a shade under $600 for Bregman.
Most of the guys you watch every night, and see on SportsCenter every day are team controlled. They're near minimum salaries. And Trout's the third best value at a $24 million average salary.
Right.
Yeah. So that's his value.
But it's just amazing to me in the the players that Aaron Judge makes $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm feeling for Aaron Judge, but living in New York at $600K, he's got to have some teammates buy him dinner a few times, Paul. I mean that's how it's got to work.
There's a few that can afford it. Don't worry.
But when you have guys making $20 million, average pitchers making $20 million, and these guys are making $600,000. Something's out of whack.
The first 6 years of baseball are just brutal. They really are. I mean, the team has so much control over the finances. It's brutal, and like we're seeing with the other sports that have hard caps, baseball doesn't have a hard cap. Remember that. They just have this sort of rookie 6-year window, and teams are taking advantage of it. A lot of these players that are up for the major awards right now are either team controlled or arbitration or not on their major contract outside of Mike Trout here. And boy, it's crazy because the long and short of this is the best players in baseball are also very, very inexpensively paid.
All right, for the money, team payroll, who wins the World Series? Who's your pick right now?
Go ahead, Paul.
Who wins the World Series?
World Series.
Boy, I still like Houston. I know you said they're banged up. They seem to be taking a little bit of a step back. I still think they know how to win. They've got the experience. They've got a guy like Verlander who can just go out and mow you down every 3 days, 4 days. But I think the Red Sox are playing great right now with a really deep lineup. And if it's not going to be Houston, I'll give it to the Boston Red Sox.
So you're picking
Houston.
Houston, okay. Because you set everybody up there with Houston, and then it's like being your buddies, the Yankees fans. So you went with the Royals after George Brett hit the pine tar homer to root for the Royals. So
this is me glaring at Kevin.
Okay, I'm going to take the Red Sox.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going with the Red Sox
all the way through, huh? Wall to wall on Boston.
Well, I'm
staying in the American League too, but I'm going Cleveland.
Really?
I think they're the deepest team in that conference. I think they're even
playing
deeper
the weakest
than Boston's
division.
But that's to their benefit. Right? That's their benefit. They've taken 2 months off here. They've had guys on the DL just because they needed it. They were a little dinged up and they wanted to give them a break. They've been slow playing this thing. They were so far ahead coming out of July that they've really. Tito's been slow playing it. That's a 5-man starting rotation. That's a deep bullpen when they're healthy, and they are right now. And they've got 4 ridiculously cheap, ridiculously talented batters. At least 4. Look at that lineup sometime. It's pretty crazy.
Well, they do have,
and they added Josh Donaldson, by the way. Don't forget that.
That's true. They do have the interesting thing about the American League playoffs is the Red Sox could get the Yankees, right, in the wild card game. So that doesn't seem right
in the division,
to play their division opponent, but a team that may reach 100 wins when there's a team that is going to be 90.
Yeah, Yankees Athletics is going to be one hell of a wild card, though.
Yes,
because they both got sort of different pieces. You know what I mean? There's no real ace on either of those teams right now. It's going to be a bullpen run wild card game, and that's fun. It's going to be a lot of pieces.
All right.
So must see there. I want to make one comment.
We're all going American League, though. We're not going National League.
That's interesting. It's been tough in the National League. It's been a grind, I think, for a lot of teams. But the Dodgers are clearly the most talented when they put it together. But I think the Cubs are probably the favorite. If I had to guess, my guess would be the Cubs.
Okay,
that'd be my guess. Last thing, I want to go Homer. I want to talk Mets here real quick because Jacob deGrom is going to win the Cy Young. I think I'm leaning that way at least, and I don't know how much you've been following this.
Still has a losing record.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
it's 9 wins. 9 wins. He has a 1.70 ERA. He's got ridiculous amount of strikeouts. His whip is ridiculous. Everything's perfect, right, except for the wins, and he's on a terrible team. He's got 2 more years of arbitration left, which makes him very valuable. He's making $10.5 million right now.
Valuable to the Mets or valuable to someone else?
He's making $7 million this year, guys. $7 million. 40th among starting pitchers, and he's going to win the Cy Young. And he's got 2 years of control left through arbitration. I love this guy, and I love watching him every 4 days as a Mets fan. But you got to trade this guy, right? You have to do it
while his contract is beneficial.
That's what I mean.
Who's going to trade for
everything is in your favor. You're coming off his best season ever.
Why do you think he's going to win the Cy Young over Max Scherzer?
I just think with what he's had to go through, his stats hold up even more. I just think they do. I think, and not to mention, I think the fact that he hasn't won 10 games has become such a story that that's what people are going to have in their mind when they go to sit down. Yes, I know Scherzer's got 21 wins and 300 strikeouts, and his stats are ridiculous. Not to mention he's being paid $30 million a year,
right?
And he's still doing all that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great story.
deGrom is the ERA leader with only 9 wins.
It's phenomenal.
That's hard to do. That is like having the highest save percentage in hockey, but having the lowest number of wins.
How bad's the run support been for him? What's the stat?
It's unbelievable.
Is it like 2 runs a game?
It's a little higher than that, but it's been pretty bad. It's been better of late. I mean, these Mets kids that have come up have actually kind of played some good ball, but it's been a tough year. It's been a brutal year. It's just tough to watch. But he's been an absolute spotlight. Look at the record he has. I think it's 28 straight starts where he's given up 3 runs or less. That's a major league record. I think he's got something like 18 straight quality starts, which is six innings or more of
3 runs or less.
Right? It's nuts. So I just think from a quality consistency standpoint, he's going to win the award. And when he does, I think you got to put him right on the trade block. And I think he's going across town.
You know, the amazing thing is his ERA is half of what it was last year.
Yeah, he's had a hell of a
That's
year.
hard. That is a incredible improvement in a year where he's struggling to reach double digits in wins.
You know what's kind of cool for me too, from a Mets standpoint? Aaron Nola and Max Scherzer are both his competition for the Cy Young right now, right? Both divisional. These is all NL East guys right here, right? These 3. The Mets have played them in the last 3 weeks, and the Mets beat them both up. Beat up Scherzer, beat up Nola. Took them deep 3-4 times. So it's possible that the Mets batters actually won Jacob deGrom a Cy Young in the last
deGrom,
month.
Yeah,
it's actually possible that that's the reason. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see. Keep an eye on that. I think it's going to be a big, big trade this winter.
Great. So the Mets are going to suck again, is what you're saying.
I don't know. I mean, God, the pullback you get for a guy like that, right? How do we even value that trade?
At what point, if you think the Mets are on their way to being better, do you keep them?
I think with what you can get back,
it's more than it's too. You can't pass up the opportunity to trade them.
No, I think you've got a team like the Yankees who have young guys on the field right now they could give up, and young guys in the prospects they could give up, plus cash. I mean, plus the fact that you don't have to pay this guy $35 million a year, which somebody's going to have to, right? And generally the Mets don't do that. So if you're not going to do it, right, how long is he? I mean, when is he going to start holding out? Right? Are we going to get to that point?
When are the Mets going to start operating like a big market franchise that they are?
It's not going to happen.
And Bernie Madoff pays him back.
Yeah,
okay, all right. Speaking of money. All right, hey, that's a lot of great stuff there in the NFL. Baseball, as you know, we get down to the playoffs here. It's going to be, I love Major League Baseball playoffs. It's just great stuff. Wild card game, the one game playing, that's exciting. All apologies to Oakland fans. I hope we see Yankees Red Sox in one game, even though I picked the Red Sox. All right. Make sure you sign up. Premium service at SpotTrack.com. It is worth it. Ad-free experience.
Get the app, too.
You get the app. You get special access to special content in the premium service. It'll be the best money that you spend today. Also, make sure you rate us in the iTunes store or wherever you get this pod on your device. Give us a great rating. We appreciate that. And check out our stuff at BuffaloSportsPage.com, too. For Mike Giannetti and Paul Pack, I'm Kevin Sylvester. Thanks for listening to SpotTrack.com podcast.